Welcome to the Behind Closed Doors channel. Wishing you a peaceful day. Today, I'd like to share the following story with you. I hope you enjoy listening to my story. Now, please.
To lie that built a life. I told a billionaire I was his wife, and he already knew. Part 1. The beginning. The moment everything changed. The first thing Chin Moo-hei said to me when he opened his eyes in that hospital room was not, "Where am I?" or "What happened?" or even a groan of pain. He looked directly at me, a 24-year-old nobody whose entire net worth could be found in a second-hand purse and a bus pass, and he asked very quietly, "Who are you?" I was awake for 19 hours. My right hand was wrapped in bloodied gauze. I was wearing a 50-yuan blouse I'd bought from a street vendor 3 years ago and had never quite washed the yellow out of. My hair was matted. My face was streaked with dried tears and probably worse things. And standing in the doorway of this man's private hospital suite, surrounded by the antiseptic hum of machines tracking a heartbeat worth more than the GDP of a small country, I made the single most catastrophic decision of my entire life. I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, "I'm your wife." The silence that followed lasted approximately 3 seconds. Then I started crying. Not delicate cinematic tears. I mean the full collapse, ugly, gasping, snot and everything crying. The kind that no Oscar committee has ever rewarded because it is simply too real and too undignified to be considered art. My shoulders shook, my voice cracked. I gripped the steel rail of his hospital bed with both hands because my legs had forgotten to support weight. And Chin Moo-hei, the man they called the Chin Grim Reaper, the youngest chairman in City A's financial district, the 32-year-old who had personally dismantled 3 veteran board members in his first year alone, looked at this catastrophic, weeping, street vendor blouse-wearing disaster of a woman claiming to be his wife, and he believed me. Or so I thought. 3 years later, I was crouching on the floor of our living room, his living room, in the penthouse that overlooked the river, in the life I had borrowed without permission, trying to catch 2 toddlers who moved like greased eels. Chin Min Min, age 3, had just made a break for the gap beneath the sofa. Chin Ha-yang, age 2, was attempting to eat a coaster. My stomach, 7 months and 2 weeks pregnant with our 3rd child, made every lunge and pivot feel like dragging a loaded sandbag through wet cement. "Chin Moo-hei," I yelled toward the study. "Can you come out here for 5 seconds? Just 5!" No answer. The study door was not fully closed. Through the gap, his voice carried, low and cold, and entirely unlike the warm, careful man who had spent 3 years opening doors for me and remembering that I liked my soup without too much salt. This voice was different. This voice belonged to someone who ate companies for breakfast and found it mildly nutritious. Have the legal team redo the Q3 merger proposal. The Zhu Min-yong situation is handled. Also, a pause. Investigate the background of Jiang Si-yi. My name. That was my name. The coaster fell out of Ha-yang's hands. Min Min successfully disappeared under the sofa. The baby in my stomach kicked hard as if registering the seismic shift. In my chest, something cracked quietly, the sound of a lie finally reaching the end of its shelf life. You need to understand what I had done and why before you can understand what happened next.
My name is Zhang Si-yi. I grew up in an orphanage in Nancheng. A real one, not a Dickensian nightmare kind, but not exactly a warm and storybook childhood either. Director Zhang, who ran it, was a good woman with too little funding and too much heart, and she made sure we knew how to work hard and ask for nothing. I learned early that the universe operated on a strict transactional basis. You got what you earned, and you were grateful for it, and you did not reach for things that weren't yours. Which is why what I did in that hospital room was so spectacularly out of character. I had been working at Chin Group for exactly 11 months when the accident happened. My position was administrative assistant, lowest rung, small desk in the corner, the kind of employee that senior management walks past without registering as human. My salary was 5,000 yuan a month. I bought my lunches from a convenience store and ate them on the rooftop alone because the break room was too loud and I was too tired for conversation. I had, quietly and completely stupidly, developed feelings for Chin Mu-he. I want to be honest about this. I knew it was idiotic. The man was in a different stratosphere. He wore suits that cost more than my annual rent. He moved through rooms the way weather systems moved through cities. Everything adjusted around him, and he barely noticed. In 11 months of working 30 feet away from him, he had looked directly at me exactly twice, and one of those times was by accident. I had filed this feeling away under things that will never matter and gotten on with my life. Then came the night of the accident. I was working late, genuine, unglamorous overtime, sorting expense reports in the administrative office, when something on the security monitor caught my eye. A figure moving through the underground parking lot with the careful, deliberate economy of someone who was very much trying not to be noticed. I watched him crouch beside a sleek black sedan. I watched him reach underneath. My stomach turned over. I called Chin Mu-he's phone. No answer. He was probably already in the elevator. I ran. I was 40 seconds too late. The car had already started. I stood at the exit of the parking structure, waving my arms like a complete idiot, and the vehicle came toward me with the mechanical certainty of something that could no longer stop, and then everything happened very fast. The screech of brakes that couldn't catch, the impact of the car against the concrete median divider, and the spray of debris that opened a long red line across my right palm before I could get my hand up in time. I called the ambulance. I rode in it. I waited outside a surgical theater for 4 hours, which is a very long time to sit with a gauze-wrapped hand and the dawning realization that you are completely alone in a waiting room designed for families. When the nurse came to tell me he was awake, I walked in. He looked at me. He asked who I was. And in that long, suspended second, I looked past him, through the glass partition, at the hallway where several people were already gathering. Chin Group's acting management team, summoned from their evening dinners. A man I recognized as the head of the board's audit committee, already on his phone. 2 individuals I'd seen in meetings, whispering to each other with expressions that had nothing to do with relief and everything to do with calculation. Chin Mu-he had lost his memory. He was lying in a hospital bed, completely vulnerable, with no recollection of who he was and what he owned, and the people moving toward that door were not there to hold his hand. "I'm your wife."
I have thought about that moment 1,000 times since. The specific architecture of desperation that produces a lie like that. I was nobody. I had no power, no money, no family name. I had absolutely nothing to offer except for one thing. I was the only person in that building who came running toward the crash instead of away from it. And I was the only person in that hallway who didn't want anything from him. I think in some small and possibly delusional way, I believed I was protecting him. I was also, obviously, out of my mind with exhaustion, shock, and the specific irrational hope that a person sometimes feels when they are young and have read too many stories about how the world might, just once, reward the right impulse. He believed me. The nurses checked their records and found nothing. His memory was gone, not partially, not selectively, but cleanly and completely, like a hard drive wiped. He had no way to verify or contradict anything I said, and when the hospital staff pulled me aside to ask questions about insurance and next of kin and whether I had identification, I sat down on a plastic chair in a fluorescent hallway and thought, what have I done? But it was done. What followed was not a fairy tale. I want to be precise about this. The first week, I barely slept. I spent every spare moment in the hospital bathroom rehearsing answers to questions he hadn't asked yet, constructing a version of our relationship that was internally consistent, preparing for the moment he'd ask where we'd met or what our anniversary was or whether I liked his mother. He didn't ask any of those things. He asked, "Are you eating enough?" He asked, "Did you sleep last night? Your eyes look tired." He asked, "That cut on your hand, is it healing properly? Have you had it looked at?" The man had just woken up without a single memory in his head, and his primary concern was whether the woman sitting beside his hospital bed had eaten breakfast. I understood in those early days that something genuinely unusual was happening. Chin Moo-hei without his memories was still, structurally, Chin Moo-hei, intelligent, observant, precise. He absorbed information with a quiet intensity that should have alarmed me. He asked questions that sounded casual but weren't. He watched people. He watched me. But he was also, and I say this as someone who had spent 11 months observing him from a corner desk, different. The sharp-edged efficiency was still there, but so was something softer, something that his memories had apparently been suppressing. He laughed more easily. He asked for help when he needed it. One afternoon, he confessed with an expression of genuine perplexity that he couldn't figure out how to operate the television remote and had been staring at it for 20 minutes rather than admit defeat. I showed him how to turn on the TV. It was the most intimate moment I had ever experienced. We moved back to his apartment after 2 weeks. I say we as if this were a natural thing, as if I had spent 48 hours before discharge lying awake composing elaborate exit strategies before concluding that I had absolutely no idea how to extract myself from the situation I had created. His apartment was 300 square meters. It overlooked the river. The kitchen alone was larger than my previous residence. I stood in the entrance hallway with a small bag of belongings, everything I owned, which was both embarrassingly little and, in the context of where I was standing, almost comically insufficient. And Chin Moo-hei stood beside me and said, "Does it feel like home to you?" I almost said no. "Yes," I said instead. "It feels like home." He nodded, something complicated moving through his expression. "I'm sorry," he said, "that I can't remember it with you." That was when I should have confessed. I did not confess.
I unpacked my small bag into a closet the size of my old apartment. I learned where the cups were kept. I adjusted to the impossible softness of a mattress that probably cost more than my orphanage's annual food budget. And very slowly, across weeks and then months, I stopped rehearsing exit strategies and started simply living. Our first child, Min Min, arrived 11 months after the accident. Our second, Hao Yang, came 15 months after that. And now, crouching on the floor of a penthouse with 2 toddlers and a 7-month pregnancy and a voice carrying through a study door that confirmed my worst fear in 4 simple words: investigate the background of Jiang Si. I understood that the exit strategy had become urgently necessary again. The one who never looked away. Before I describe what happened next, I need to tell you about Secretary Zhu. He had worked for Qin Mu-hei for 6 years. He was 29, perpetually neat, possessed of an expression that managed to be simultaneously respectful and completely unreadable. In 3 years of observing him, I had developed the theory that Secretary Zhu was not, in strictly speaking, a human being, but rather a very sophisticated organizational system that had learned to simulate one. He was also, I would discover, completely loyal, not in the unthinking way of someone who has never questioned their employer, but in the deliberate way of someone who has questioned, concluded the answer is worth the cost, and chosen accordingly. Secretary Zhu knew what I had done. He had known for a long time. He never said a word. The night I ran, the night I packed a suitcase I had been quietly preparing for 3 years, bundled 2 sleeping toddlers into a pre-called taxi in the 4 in the morning, and fled to a train station in the dark with a 7-month stomach and a one-way ticket to Nanchang, Secretary Zhu was the first one Qin Mu-hei sent to find me. He located me 2 weeks later, standing at a supermarket checkout counter in a small Nanchang neighborhood, scanning barcodes in a uniform 2 sizes too large, my ankles visibly swollen from standing 8-hour shifts on a concrete floor. He walked through the automatic doors in a long black coat that was entirely, absurdly out of place, saw me, and stood still for a moment. Something moved through his face. Not pity. Secretary Zhu was structurally incapable of pity. Something closer to recognition. There you are. Mrs. Qin, he said. I don't have that name, I said without looking up. Beep. A bag of salt. $3.50. Miss Jiang, he corrected without missing a beat. Mr. Qin asks that I escort you home. I am home. He glanced at the flickering fluorescent light above my head, at the price sticker on the shelf behind me that someone had put on crooked, at my ankles. He did not comment on any of these things, which from Secretary Zhu was its own kind of comment. Mr. Qin said that if you declined, he would come himself. I scanned a bottle of soy sauce. Beep, 12 yuan 80. Tell him to come then. Secretary Zhu opened his mouth, closed it. Then, with the expression of a man delivering a medical diagnosis he personally finds distressing, he said, Miss Jiang, in the past 2 weeks, Mr. Qin has turned City A upside down looking for you. He's posted a missing person notice. It was on the news. I almost dropped the soy sauce. There is a 5 million yuan reward, Secretary Zhu added.
The person behind me in line looked up sharply. I finished scanning the transaction in silence. Then I looked at Secretary Ju and said very quietly, "Tell him I will not be coming back. Tell him to use the reward money for something useful." Secretary Ju looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded once and left. I stood there for 3 more minutes before I realized my hands were shaking.
Part 2. The Reckoning. What the camera saw. Here is what I did not know on the night I fled. Chin Mu-hei had recovered his memory 3 months before I ran. Not gradually, not piecemeal. It came back in a single night, the way some things break. He woke at 3 in the morning, knowing exactly who he was and everything he had ever done, and the complete, verifiable, absolutely certain fact that he had never, in his entire life before the accident, so much as learned the name of the small, quiet, administrative assistant who worked in the corner of the office. He lay in the dark for a long time. Then he looked at the woman sleeping beside him, 7 months pregnant, one hand curled under her cheek, breathing with the deep evenness of someone who has, finally, after years of vigilance, learned to let herself rest. And he made a decision. He told no one. He continued to behave exactly as he had for the previous 3 years. He cooked dinner. He read stories to Min-min at bedtime. He attended prenatal appointments and asked the obstetrician questions about nutritional supplementation that he had clearly researched in advance. He argued with me, gently, infuriatingly, about whether I should be carrying the groceries myself, or whether that was a job that could wait for someone with fewer than 2 people occupying her abdominal cavity. And in the privacy of his study, with the door closed and the volume low, he gave very specific instructions to very specific people. Recover the backup footage from the parking structure server, the night of the accident 3 years ago. Find out who gave the order. Find out everything. When he finally said those 4 words into his phone, investigate the background of Jiang Ziyi, he already knew the answer. He already knew everything he had known for 3 months. The investigation wasn't looking for evidence of my deception. It was gathering evidence of someone else's. I didn't understand this when I ran. I understood only that the man I had spent 3 years lying to had remembered who I actually was, and that the consequences were going to be catastrophic, and that whatever small, constructed life I had borrowed needed to be returned before the bill came due. I found him in Nanchang on a Tuesday afternoon, 14 days after I'd arrived. I was at the register, beep, a bag of lotus root chips, 6.40, when the automatic door opened and a figure in a black coat walked in, and the temperature in the room somehow dropped 2 degrees, and I knew without looking up that the 14 days were over. He stood in front of my register.
"You're back," I said, without inflection. Beep. "Soy milk. 4 you are 90. "I never left," he said. "You left." I scanned the next item. "Your point being?" "Come home." "This is home." He looked at the flickering light, at the linoleum floor, at my ankles, which were, despite my best efforts, visibly swollen above the straps of my shoes. "Jiang Ziyi," he said, and his voice was so careful and so level that I finally, involuntarily, looked up. He was the same as he had always been, exactly the same, not the soft, warm version I had constructed a life with, but not quite the cold, precise version I had feared either. Something between the two. Something that had clearly decided not to be either thing fully, for reasons I didn't yet understand. "Let me take you home," he said. "We'll talk there." "You want to talk, or you want to interrogate?" "Both," he said, "but dinner first." That evening, he cooked in my apartment's tiny kitchen. Sour and sweet pork ribs, stir-fried greens, wood-eared mushroom soup with lotus seeds. Every single one of my favorite dishes replicated in a kitchen barely large enough to turn around in, with a wok that came with the rental and hadn't been properly seasoned in living memory. He served dinner. He strapped Hao Yang's bib on. He lifted Min Min into his chair with the practiced ease of a man who had been doing exactly this for years. And then we sat down across from each other at the table with its broken leg propped on paperback books under a 100-watt bulb that cast everything in the flat, unforgiving light of truth. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. "When," I said, "did you get your memory back?" 3 months ago, he said. The room went very quiet. I ran through the math. 3 months ago, I had been resting at home, deferring to his careful recommendations about sleep schedules and diet and whether the humidity in the bedroom was properly calibrated. 3 months ago, he had been rubbing my feet in the evenings and reading bedtime stories in character voices that he clearly found embarrassing but performed anyway because Min Min's requests were not optional. 3 months ago, he already knew, and he had said nothing. "Why?" I asked. "I needed to understand your purpose." He set down his chopsticks. In the flat white light, his face was unreadable as architecture. "Money?" he said. "The household allowance was 50,000 yuan a month. You spent 8,000 maximum. Power? You never used my name for anything, not once in 3 years. Revenge? You were a junior administrative assistant. I didn't even know you existed." Each sentence landed quietly, like weights being placed on a scale. "So I watched," he said, "for 3 months, and I couldn't figure out what you wanted." "And," I said, though my mouth was very dry. "And I still can't," he said. "So I'm asking you directly. Jiang Ziyi, what did you want?" I looked at him for a long moment. "I told you already," I said. "I liked your face." He blinked. 3 years ago, you were lying in a hospital bed with your head wrapped in gauze, and you were still, objectively, the most attractive person I had ever seen in my life. I thought, this man doesn't know who he is, and nobody's claiming him, and I could, so I did. 3 seconds of absolute silence. "That's it," he said. "That's it. You committed fraud and bore me 2 children and are currently pregnant with a 3rd because you found me aesthetically appealing." "When you say it like that," I said, "it does sound a little irrational." "I was going to say spontaneous." He looked at me. I looked at him. Somewhere behind us, Hao Yang successfully upended his bowl of soup.
And then, I would not have believed this if I hadn't been there. The corner of Qin Muhei's mouth moved very slightly in what might have technically been classified as the beginning of a smile. "Jiang Ziyi," he said, "you are the worst liar I have ever encountered. I got away with it for 3 years. You did not," he said quietly, "get away with anything." The woman at the door. The next morning, the doorbell rang.
She was beautiful in the aggressive, meticulously constructed way of someone for whom beauty is a professional requirement rather than an incidental feature. Cashmere coat, current season, limited edition bag, makeup applied with the precision of someone who understood that presentation was its own form of power. She stood in my doorway and looked at me, at my maternity blouse and bare feet and unbrushed hair, with the specific expression of a person who is accustomed to winning and finds the present situation architecturally confusing. "Zhang Ziyi?" she said. "Yes. I'm Hui Wan." A small, composed smile. "Mu Hei's fiancé." A pause. "Former fiancé, I should say, since you've been playing the role for the past 3 years." I held the door handle and did not step aside. Qin Mu Hei appeared from the kitchen. He saw her. Something settled in his face, not surprise exactly, more like a chess player watching a piece move to an expected square. "Hui Wan," he said, "why are you here?" She pushed past me, actually pushed with one hand, as though I were a door rather than a person, and stepped inside. She took in the peeling walls and the table with its book-propped leg and the 2 toddlers peering at her from the bedroom doorway with the cautious curiosity of small animals assessing a predator. Her face went through several calculations. "Mu Hei," she said, and now the composure had sharp edges. "Your mother is in the hospital. The entire city is talking about how you were deceived for 3 years, and you're living here, in this?" She glanced at my apartment with the expression of someone encountering an architectural concept that should not legally exist. "You need to come home." "The accident 3 years ago," Qin Mu Hei said. His voice was very even. "It wasn't accidental." Hui Wan went still. "Someone interfered with my brake system. The security footage from the parking structure was deleted, but the server maintained a backup. After I recovered my memory, I had it restored. It shows your driver, Zhang Dayong, crawling out from underneath my vehicle." The color left her face the way water leaves a glass that's been tipped. "That could be—" "Zhang Dayong was arrested last week. He confessed. We have the recording of your instructions." She had come into this apartment with all the confident momentum of someone holding a winning hand. In the space of 90 seconds, the hand had been laid on the table, and the cards were not, in fact, what she'd thought they were.
"Moher," she said, and now her voice cracked slightly. "I didn't want you to die. I just needed more time. You were going to cancel the engagement, and I thought if something happened, something small, you wouldn't. I would have been there. You would have been the concerned fiancé," he said, "controlling my medical decisions, managing my affairs, working with the board members who were already maneuvering for position." Her mouth opened, closed. "Instead," he said, "the person who ran toward my car was Zhang Ziyi, an administrative assistant you didn't know existed, who called the ambulance and rode with me and sat in the hallway for 4 hours and," his voice dropped to register, "told a lie that turned out to be the most consequential truth I've encountered." Min Min had crept out from the bedroom and was now standing behind his father's leg, watching Shu Wan with wide, solemn eyes. "The Didi looks scary," Min Min whispered loudly, addressing no one in particular. Qin Mu He glanced down at his son with an expression I had seen before, that particular softening around the eyes that he never quite managed to suppress when either of the boys said something exactly accurate. "Leave," he said to Shu Wan. "If you come back, I'll call the police." She left. The door shook the frame when it closed. Min Min burst into tears, startled by the sound, and Chin Mu-he had him in his arms before I could even move, talking in the low, steady tone that Min Min's nervous temperament had always responded to better than any amount of reassurance. "There," he said, "she's gone. She won't come back." Then he looked at me over Min Min's head. "After he's calmer, we need to finish our conversation." That night, the children asleep, we sat across from each other again. I told him everything. The night of the accident, what I had seen on the security monitor, the figure moving through the parking lot, the phone call that went unanswered, running, standing in the path of a car that could no longer stop, the debris and the blood, and the ambulance ride and the plastic waiting room chair under fluorescent light. And then, because I was already telling the truth, I told him the rest. I told him that when he had reached for my hand in the hospital room, "Don't go, you're hurt," with no memory, no reason, purely some reflex that operated below the level of conscious thought, something had happened to me that I hadn't had the experience or vocabulary to name yet. I told him that I had looked at the people gathering in the hallway and thought, with a clarity I had not known I possessed, every one of them is here to take something from him. I told him that I had been standing there with a bleeding hand and a 5,000 yuan monthly salary and absolutely nothing to my name except the fact that I was the only person present who wanted nothing. "So you lied," he said. I lied. "And you stayed." "I stayed for too long," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "The scar on your hand," he said, finally. "I noticed it the first day. It matched a cut on my arm, debris from the same impact. I had medical staff trace the accident sequence. They estimated that someone was standing directly in the path of the vehicle." I looked at my palm. "I knew," he said, "within the first week that the story was impossible. The hospital had no record of you in my contacts, no photographs, no financial accounts, nothing. A man in my position doesn't marry without a paper trail. But you, I chose to believe you," he said. The room was very quiet. "In that hospital room," he said, "every person who came through the door had a purpose. Auditors, board members, people with access requests and questions about signing authority." He looked at me. "You came in covered in blood, asking if I was in pain. That was the most suspicious thing about you. Nobody who wanted something from me would have been that obviously selfless. It was either very clever theater or it was real." "It was real," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why I let it continue."
Part 3. The Truth Beneath the Lie. What was at stake? I want to tell you about the specific weight of the next few weeks because I think it matters. People tend to tell this kind of story as though it moves in straight lines. Deception discovered, consequences faced, resolution reached. But the reality was considerably irregular. There were conversations that petered out because a child woke up crying. There were evenings where we sat in the same room, processing something large and unspoken, while Hao Yang systematically removed all the books from the lower shelf, and Min Min tried to teach himself to whistle. There was the morning Chin Mu-he made me breakfast in a kitchen the size of a broom closet, and I watched him navigate it with a careful precision of a large person in a small space, and I thought, this man owns a company worth 50 billion yuan, and he is currently trying to turn around with a spatula without hitting the refrigerator. There was the evening Secretary Zhu appeared at the door with a sealed envelope,
the DNA results, confirming what no one seriously doubted, and handed it to Qin Mu-hui, and the two men exchanged a look I wasn't quite fast enough to decode before Secretary Zhu turned and left without a word. There was the call Qin Mu-hui made to his mother, Meng Yalan, that I heard through a door left fractionally open. She's not a con artist. She's the person who saved my life. If you want to meet her, you'll come here. I'm not bringing her back to City A. There are too many people waiting to turn her into a spectacle. His voice doing the particular work of a son who loves his mother and disagrees with her and is not going to pretend otherwise. And there was, underneath all of it, the thing neither of us had said directly, that we were both standing in the rubble of a lie that somehow constructed itself into something larger and more real than either of us had planned. And the question was not whether that thing existed, but what we were going to do about it. Qin Mu-hui's answer to this was characteristically direct. He moved in. Not with discussion or negotiation or the courtesy of asking. He arrived one evening with 4 people I had never met, a nanny, a maternity nurse, a nutritionist, and an obstetrician, who apparently materialized fully formed whenever Qin Mu-hui decided something needed to happen, and announced that he was staying. You don't have the right to just... You are 8 months pregnant. Your ankles look like bread dough. You have been standing on concrete floors for 8 hours a day. I'm fine. You are not fine. He said it without cruelty. You are managing. Those are different things. I looked at him for a long moment. What do you actually want? I said. Not for the company, not for the children. What do you want? He looked back at me. You, he said, as though this were a straightforward logistical matter. I want you to stop running. I've been running from the beginning, I said. I know, he said. You're not fast enough.
The mother. I should tell you about Meng Yilan. She arrived 2 days later at exactly 9 in the morning, which I had been warned about, but was nonetheless not adequately prepared for. She wore Chanel. Her hair did not contain a single strand out of place. She stood in my doorway and looked at me, at my maternity dress and my bare feet and my unbrushed hair, which was becoming a theme, with the expression of a woman conducting an extremely thorough professional assessment. "You're Jiang Ziyi?" she said. "Yes. Hello, please come in." I stood aside. "Would you like tea? I have..." Mentally inventorying the kitchen. "Green tea, and I think there's some oolong, and there's also a box of chrysanthemum that might be from..." "Sit down," she said. "You shouldn't be standing on those feet." I sat. She did not sit. She moved through my apartment with the careful economy of someone who has spent decades making quick assessments and become very good at it. She looked at the patched wall, at the table, at the paperbacks propping the broken leg, which she tilted her head slightly to read the titles of, at the half-finished knitted sweater on the arm of the sofa, tiny, designed for a child who had not yet arrived. Then Qin Mu-hui walked in from the kitchen carrying Hao Yang, and Hao Yang immediately reached for the Baroque pearl necklace around Meng Yilan's neck and inserted it into his mouth. There was a pause. Her face went through something complex and rapid, like a weather system deciding what it wanted to be. She did not remove the necklace from Hao Yang's hands. She sat down on the sofa. It creaked. Her posture did not change, and looked at me over the head of her drooling grandson. "Jiang Ziyi," she said, "you lied to my son." "Yes." "You kept the lie going for 3 years." "Yes."
And in that time you produced 2 children, are currently working on a third, and managed to convince a man who once had 3 board members removed in his first week of tenure that he was deliriously happy. I blinked. I would say he was deliriously happy, she said. That's the part that's difficult to reconcile. She looked at me for a long time. Hao Yang had abandoned the pearls and was now trying to fit his entire fist into his own mouth. Min Min, who had arrived from the bedroom with the cautious step of a child assessing a large, unfamiliar dog, stood at the edge of the room, watching everything with his father's eyes. Meng Yilan? Min Min said, reading the name from some internal file of things he had heard adults say. Yes, she said. Are you Daddy's mum? I am. He considered this. You're very tall, he said. Thank you, she said. You're very direct. Daddy says that's good. Daddy is right. Min Min walked over carefully and patted her knee twice with the determined air of someone checking if something was real. Then he went back to the bedroom, apparently satisfied. Meng Yilan watched him go. Something in her face shifted, subtle, genuine, the involuntary softening of a person who has not yet decided how they feel about a situation, but whose body has already made its determination. She looked at me. Sit down, she said again as I had started to rise. I'll say what I need to say quickly. First, I don't like you. I understand. Second, my son's judgment about people has never been reliable, but he's also never been wrong. I processed this. Third, she said, if you're going to do this, and it seems as though you are, regardless of my opinion, do it properly. Go back to City A. Hold your head up. Don't hide. She reached into her bag and produced a card. Buy clothes, get your hair done, have a facial, not for aesthetics. She held out the card. For the child you're carrying, you deserve to feel like a person who belongs where she is. I took the card. Thank you, I said. Should I call you Mrs. Meng or grandmother? She said with finality. Then, after a pause, so quiet I almost missed it, or mother, if you insist.
The reckoning that wasn't. Xu Wan's trial was 5 months after we returned to City A. 7 years for intentional assault, additional proceedings for the 200 million yuan in Qin Group funds that had quietly been redirected during the 3 years Qin Muhe's memory was gone. The Xu family cut her loose with the speed and completeness of people who had decided a sinking ship was no longer worth the effort of bailing. I watched the verdict announcement on my phone from a hospital bed in the maternity ward, because the timing of justice is indifferent to personal logistics. Our daughter arrived 6 hours later. 3.2 kilos, all standard measurements within normal range. A face that would, over the following months, arrange itself into an increasingly precise copy of mine. Qin Muhe held her in his arms in the delivery room, still in surgical gear, mask pushed down around his chin, and his hands shook visibly. The hands that had signed acquisition agreements worth more than the annual revenue of mid-sized municipalities, and they were shaking around 3 kilos of brand new person. He didn't make a sound. He stood there, and 2 lines of water moved down his face in perfect silence, and he stared at his daughter as if he was taking a photograph with his eyes. I pretended not to see. Some dignity is worth protecting. Her name was Qin Chao Ran. Chao for gratitude, Ran from my name, Su Yi, rewritten, the meaning to know the goodness of the mother. Qin Muhe chose it. I said it was fine. The thing he had always known.
The year after Chaoran was born, a financial magazine ran a profile of Chin Mu-hei. Standard feature, quarterly business press, the kind of publication that tracks stock prices and acquisition strategies and uses words like synergy without irony. The journalist asked him about the 3 years. "The best 3 years of my life," he said. She followed up, "Despite the circumstances?" "Because of the circumstances," he said. "I lost my memory and gained a family. If you offered me the trade again, I would take it." Lam Dong, my best friend, who had spent the past 4 years alternating between horrified and deeply envious, called me the moment the issue hit newsstands. "Sir Yi," she said, "your husband said this." "I know." "He said it to a journalist." "I know." "In a magazine that 60,000 people subscribe to." "Lam Dong," she said, "I just want to verify that you understand what you have, because from the outside it looks like you are taking it remarkably calmly." What I didn't tell her was that when the magazine arrived at our house, Chin Mu-hei was sitting at the kitchen table with Hao Yang on his lap, refusing to relinquish the television remote for the 3rd time that morning, and Chao Ran was gnawing on his collar, and Min Min was showing him a drawing of a terrifying pterosaur eating a bad man with the expectant air of someone awaiting critical review. "Very good," Chin Mu-hei said to the drawing. "The teeth are anatomically accurate." "I looked them up," Min Min said proudly. "Your research methodology is sound." I stood in the kitchen doorway and thought, not for the first time, this is the most powerful man in City A's financial district, and he is offering detailed feedback on a child's dinosaur drawing at 8 in the morning, and the magazine on the counter says he would do it all again. The thing I understood about Chin Mu-hei by then was this. He had not simply forgiven me for the lie. He had, in some structural way I still sometimes struggle to articulate, that the lie and everything that followed it were continuous, not separate events requiring individual reconciliation, but a single thing, a single story, with a single meaning. You are the person who ran toward the car. Everything else follows from that.
The ending. What the album contained. On our 5th wedding anniversary, he gave me a photograph album. The first photograph was blurry and slightly off-angle, the quality of security camera footage enlarged beyond its resolution. A corner of the Chin Group Administrative Office, a young woman with a ponytail sitting at the smallest desk, eating a convenience store lunch, alone. Day 1 of my employment. I turned the page. The company's Christmas gift exchange, back row almost entirely obscured by other people. A young woman standing on her toes, neck extended, looking toward the front of the room, looking at him. I remembered this. I had told myself I was checking the time on the wall clock. There was no wall clock in that direction. The next pages moved through time like a film made of someone else's surveillance. The hospital hallway, my hand gripping his, blood from both of our injuries mixing on the sheets. The first night home from the hospital, sitting very straight on his sofa with the posture of someone who has just realized the magnitude of what they've done. Min Min, minutes old, cradled against my chest while I slept. Hao Yang's first bath, both of us laughing because he had screamed at the water temperature and then immediately quieted when we adjusted it, and the expression on his face had shifted from outrage to pure contentment so rapidly it was comedic. And then the Nanchang pages. Me at the supermarket checkout, my ankles,
My face, which I did not recognize immediately because no one looks the way they think they look when they are exhausted and afraid and trying very hard to hold themselves together. The train station, a single frame, slightly blurred from motion, me standing on the platform with the stroller and the suitcase and the impossible weight of all 3 children's needs and the cold of a December night. And under this one, in his handwriting, very small, I was 200 kilometers behind you. I drove until Zhu called. I looked up. You drove after the train, I said. Yes, for 200 kilometers, until the Xu-Wan situation required me to turn back. Zhu had been trying to reach me for 40 minutes. He paused. I nearly made it. I looked at the photograph. The last page of the album was our wedding, the ballroom with 500 tables, me in a dress that weighed more than a reasonable regulatory body should allow, him at the end of the aisle with his hands very slightly closed into fists at his sides, the only tell he ever allowed. Beneath it, in the same handwriting, you lied to me for 3 years. I will lie to you for the rest of your life. The lie is this: I am a reasonable man. I am not. I simply chose you. I closed the album. The tears that arrived were not the ugly, gasping kind from that hospital room 5 years ago. They were quieter, the particular release of something that has been held for a long time, finally being allowed to set itself down. Zhang Ziyi, he said, don't. I was just going to ask if you wanted tea. I laughed, which was probably the appropriate response. There is a last thing I want to tell you. 2 years after we married, I started a company, baby and maternity products. I, by that point, had accumulated approximately 900 collective months of infant care experience and a clear perspective on what the market was missing. I did it on my own, registered the business, rented a 20-square-meter office in a technology park, hired a part-time university student, and began. Qin Mu-he lent me 8 million yuan at market interest rates. He specified that we sign a formal loan agreement. He called me when installments were due. He told me this was not help, it was a business transaction. He also, without announcement, had an air conditioning unit delivered to my office on the first genuinely hot day of summer, accompanied by a text that said, "This is concern from a husband, not investment from a creditor. Make the distinction." I did not, for the record, make the distinction. The company did well. The first year, better than expected. The second year, profitable. By the 5th year, the same year he gave me the album, the annual revenue crossed 1 billion yuan. A financial journalist asked me in an interview what Qin Mu-he's contribution to my success had been. I said he lent me 8 million yuan at full market interest with timely reminders when payments were due.
The journalist laughed. "And?" she said. "And," I said, "for 3 years he took care of our children so I could work." "That's the most valuable contribution?" "It's the only one that couldn't be replaced," I said. "You can get investors anywhere. You can't get someone who will spend a Tuesday afternoon teaching a 2-year-old not to eat the television remote because you have a meeting." I meant it. The anniversary dinner that year was at home, not a restaurant. Qin Mu-he cooked. Min Min set the table with the serious concentration of an 8-year-old who has decided that table setting is a skill worth mastering. Hao Yang, 6, knocked over 2 glasses and expressed absolutely no remorse. Xiao Ran,
4 sat at the table in her small chair and delivered a running commentary on everything she observed with the authoritative confidence of a person who is not yet aware that most people edit their thoughts before speaking. "Baba," she said, watching her father serve soup, "are you and Mama going to kiss?" "Potentially," he said. "Min Min says you kiss too much." "Min Min is 8, he said. He lacks perspective. "I'm right here," Min Min said. "I know, you're still 8. I watched this, the kitchen full of the smell of food and the noise of 3 children and the specific absurd tenderness of the life I had accidentally built with a lie and a bloody hand and the most poorly calculated decision of my adult life. He caught me watching. "What?" he said. "Nothing," I said. He looked at me for a moment. Then he set down the ladle, walked around the table, and kissed me on the top of my head, just once, brief, unremarkable, the kind of gesture that only means anything because it happens all the time. "Baba," Min Min said, "told you." "Yes," Chin Mu-hei said mildly, "you were correct. Now sit down." Here is what I think when I think about that hospital room. I was 24 years old. I had no family, no money, no connections, and no particular reason to believe that the universe was watching or that good impulses were ever rewarded. I ran toward a car that was going to hit something because there was no one else there to run. And when the man inside it opened his eyes and didn't know who I was, I told a lie that I have never fully been able to explain in terms that make logical sense. The lie was, "I am your wife." What I meant, I think, what was true underneath the specific untruth of the words, was something more like, "I am the person who came when no one else did. I am the person who wants nothing from you. I am the person who, if you will let me, will stay." Chin Mu-hei already knew I was lying. He chose to let me stay anyway. He said once that the lie itself was never the point. The person who tells a lie to protect someone is different from the person who tells a lie to take something. The first lie costs the liar. The second costs the target. Mine cost me. Everything I had spent the previous 3 years trying to tell myself that it would be fine, that I could manage the distance between what was real and what I'd constructed, that one day I would figure out a clean and painless exit, turned out to be the part that wasn't true. The marriage I had invented, that was real. The family I had accidentally grown inside it, that was real. The man who looked at me in a hospital room without a single memory in his head and reached for my hand because I was hurt and he couldn't bear it, that was real. I lied my way into something true. He knew it was a lie. He stayed anyway. These are the facts of the case. Make of them what you will. Last month, Min Min came home from school with a project on family history. He read it to us at dinner.
My mom and dad have a funny story. Mom told Dad she was his wife when Dad didn't know who he was. Dad knew she wasn't really his wife, but he said yes anyway. Then they had me and my brothers and my sister. Dad says Mom is the best liar he ever met, but also the worst because he always knew. Mom says Dad is the most annoying person she ever met because he never forgets anything. I think they both like each other a lot, even though they always argue about it. Also, my little sister ate a crayon today, but she is fine. Chin Mu-hei's expression went through several stages. "The grammar needs work," he said finally. "The content is accurate," I said. "Unfortunately," he said. "Are you going to correct it?" He looked at the paper for a long moment. "No," he said. He handed it back to Min Min. "Submit it as written," he said. "The facts are correct." Min Min beamed.
Qiaoran reached across the table to pat her father's arm twice with the authoritative air of a person bestowing approval. "Good job, Baba," she said, and Qin Mu-he, Qin Grim Reaper, youngest chairman in City A's financial history, the man who had in one career dismantled companies and exposed conspiracies and driven 200 kilometers on a highway at night trying to catch a train, looked at his 4-year-old daughter, and his face did the thing it always did, the involuntary softening he never quite managed to suppress. "Thank you," he said, with complete seriousness. "You're welcome," she said, and returned to her dinner. Outside the windows of the house he had bought in a single phone call while changing a diaper, City A moved through its evening routines. The river caught the last of the winter light, the financial district lit up, floor by floor, the way it always did. Inside, someone spilled a glass of water. Someone started crying about it. Someone else blamed the first someone, reasonably but loudly. The house was full of noise, and I sat at a table that cost more than I used to earn in a year, in a life that had begun with a lie and ended up as the truest thing I had ever managed to build. I thought about the girl I had been in that waiting room, alone, afraid, with a wrapped hand and no plan, and nothing but one small, stubborn, irrational conviction that the person lying unconscious on the other side of the door was worth more than what the other people in the hallway thought he was worth. I was right. He knew, and he chose, and here we were. A liar and a man who knew she was lying, sitting at a dinner table surrounded by the evidence of every year they decided, separately and then together, to call it love. The rice pot boiled over in the kitchen. Qin Mu-he was already up. I watched him go, and I thought this was what was at stake. Not his money or his company or even the children. This ordinary, irreplaceable evening, this table with its permanent water ring from the cup nobody remembers putting there, this noise, this specific life that neither of us planned and both of us chose. This was what we would have lost, and I am glad every single day that I told the lie. The end. Author's note. This story is a reimagining and expansion of the original Chinese romance narrative, rewritten in English with expanded psychological depth, character interiority, and structural adaptation for a Western readership. The original characters and plot structure were created by the original author. This version is an interpretive retelling.
Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel, like, comments, and share. See you again!